What's going on, everybody? America Football Network here with another video today. And today we're bringing you our LSU preview prediction video. Make sure you guys like and subscribe this video. Help me hit that 1,000 subscriber mark by the end of August. We're shooting for that. We are, I believe, 67 away right now at 9:33. So make sure you guys will help us with that. Check out our shop. We just recently launched that within the last few weeks. We got a lot of cool products on there. You can find the description, or you can find the link for that in the description. You can also find the link in our channel page. There is a section for our store that's also pinned, or there'll also be products pinned to the bottom of this video. So make sure you guys check all that out. Check out the description for more good stuff. We appreciate all the support we get from you guys. But let's go ahead and dive into today's video. So LSU last year, 10-4 overall, 6-2 in the SEC. Lost to Florida State in one of the probably the best regular season game in week one, 24-23. They lost to Tennessee. They did get blown out by Tennessee, 40-13. They did lose a bad one to Texas A&M on the road, 38-23. Got smoked by Georgia in the SEC championship, 50-30, excuse me. And then they absolutely crushed Purdue in the bowl game, 63-7. Had some big wins in there. Beat Ole Miss 45-20. They went on the road to Florida and won that game 45-35. And they beat Arkansas on the road 13-10, and Alabama in overtime, the big one, 32-31. They won that game. So 10-4 season for Brian Kelly in his first year. He comes into his second year returning his quarterback in Jaden Daniels with 300. He was 266 of 388 last year, 2,913 yards passing, 17 touchdowns to 13 interceptions. Also added in 186 carries for 885 yards and 11 touchdowns on the ground. Receiver Malik Neighbors is back, 72 catches, 1,017 yards, only had 3 touchdowns. But the defense only returns 5 starters while the offense returns 8. The biggest part on that offense is the quarterback and the entire offensive line. So that's big for them to return that. They do lose some pieces. They lose running back, of course. They lose Kayshon Boutte, probably their best wide receiver, although their most inconsistent receiver as well. I think Neighbors is probably the best receiver on the team and was last year. He definitely played the best, in my opinion, throughout the course of the season. But, you know, this LSU team, they're a dangerous team. They're a team that could potentially find themselves in a playoff spot at the end of the season. Now, can a Brian Kelly team and an LSU team do what they need to do to get to that spot? You know, they lost some games last year that were a little, head scratching, like the A&M game, getting beat that bad by Tennessee, barely beating Arkansas 13-10. You know, they definitely had some games in there. I won't count Florida State. You know, but Florida State was a good team last year and another team that could find themselves in a playoff spot this coming season. And first game, new coach, new quarterback, you lose by 1. That's not a big deal. But they had some closer games in there that they probably, like on the road at Auburn, they won 21-17. Auburn was terrible last year. So they had an up and down season for sure. They went 10-4, not bad. 9-3 in the regular season. So, you know, it's definitely a team that had a very good season under Brian Kelly in his first season, and I expect an even better one this year. Out of them, they have a decently favorable schedule. They have some tough games on the road at Mississippi State. They get FSU in week 1 again. On the road at Ole Miss, on the road at Alabama, and on the road at Missouri could be a sneaky tough game. But let's go ahead and jump in to the schedule for LSU. So week 1, like we mentioned, they get Florida State. I have that game as a win. They lost last year by 1 point. They kind of blew the game, in my opinion. I think LSU, both these teams obviously got better. I think LSU is the better football team, not by much. I wouldn't be surprised if Florida State won this game this year again. I think obviously the crowd is going to be a little bit more favorable for LSU as the game. For Florida State as the game is in Orlando. But I don't think that really matters a whole lot because I feel like both these fan bases travel good. I feel like both of these fans or both of these teams fans are going to get plenty of tickets. I think it's going to be like 55-45 in favor of Florida State. So that's not really a factor. It's really just which team's better, which team can coach in the bigger moment. I feel like Brian Kelly has bigger because I mean this game could potentially kick one of these teams out of the playoff, and I feel like Brian Kelly obviously is more experienced in those big time games. Now he hasn't really performed well in any of them. He's never won a big time game recently, a playoff game or national championship game. He's never won one of them. But this isn't technically one of those, but it's kind of hyped up to be that level. It's going to be that caliber of a game. I think LSU's going to be the more prepared team for the moment. I think that they're going to be the better coach team in the game. And I think that LSU will win the game, but I do think it will be very close, a very close game for sure. Then they get Grambling. I have this game as a win. I don't think there's much discussion needed for this. I expect this to be a game kind of like what they did to Southern last year, 65-17, something like that. Then they go on the road to Mississippi State. This is a game I could see them being pushed a little bit in. I think Mississippi State has a very good team. I think they're a threat to LSU's secondary that only returns one starter in safety Greg Brooks. With Will Rogers and that air raid offense, they could be a problem for sure for LSU's secondary. But I just think at the end of the day, LSU's more physical, they're more talented, and Mississippi State's offense, in my opinion, I think will probably stall at some point and give way, and LSU will get the win. Then they get Arkansas at home. This is a team that pushed them last year on the road. LSU did come away with the win 13-10. I think it's going to be one of those games where LSU is going to lose the physicality battle, in my opinion, but I do think that they're still going to be able to get the win. I think it's going to be difficult for them to really move the line of scrimmage, both sides of the football against an Arkansas team who really works on that and takes pride in that part of their team. And so I think it's going to be a tough battle, but I do think LSU in the end will end up winning by about 10 points, somewhere around that. I think it'll be a close, hard-fought game. Arkansas may even lead through three quarters, but I think in the fourth quarter, LSU's really going to start to kind of pull away from them. Then they go on the road to Ole Miss. I have this game as a loss. I think Ole Miss is very similar to Mississippi State with their offense, but I think they also have a threat in the run game with Quinshon Judkins. And then you look at Jackson Dart, he's going to be better in my opinion. You still have Jordan Watkins at receiver, Trey Harris, Chris Marshall, Jalen Knox. You have Michael Trigg at tight end. So Ole Miss has some good pieces. I think they're a team that can really push this LSU team, and I think that they will beat them this year. They did lose 45-20 last year at LSU, but this game is this game's at Ole Miss. I think this is going to be a very good game. I think LSU is going to have a hard time in the secondary. They lose a lot. This is early in the season, the fifth game. I think Ole Miss is a team that can really push them, and I think Ole Miss will beat them. Even last year, before losing the guys that they lost, you look at LSU's defensive numbers, they were sixth in total in the SEC in total defense allowed. That's not terrible, but it's not great. They were allowing 22.5 points a game. You look at Ole Miss last year offensively, they were first in the SEC in rushing offense, fifth in scoring at 33.5. They were only seventh in the passing at 239.8, but they were just an offensive juggernaut. They're more balanced than Mississippi State is. Last year for Ole Miss, they were third in total offense in the conference. They with 496.4. So this is definitely a very dangerous offensive team, a team that can really put yards and points on the board. And so, I think Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin are at that point where they're ready for these games like this. And I really think that Ole Miss's defense is going to be better than it was last year. They're not going to be giving up, they're not going to have the ninth scoring defense in the SEC this year, or just really the ninth defense overall. I think they're going to be much improved. I think it's going to be a close, hard-fought game down to the end, but I do think Ole Miss will come away with the win. Then LSU goes on the road to Missouri. I have this game as a win, but this could be a potential trap game for them. Missouri, we saw what they pushed Georgia to last year. Georgia kind of overlooked them. We saw what happened in that one. Missouri is a team that is definitely going to be ready each and every week. They're a team that is kind of underrated, in my opinion. I think they're going to be a little bit better than most people think they will be. I think that they're a team that can um, really, push some teams. And I think that if LSU overlooks this game, they could be pushed, but I still think they're going to win. And I don't really think it's going to be that big of a problem. I don't think Missouri has the talent yet to compete with a team like LSU. I think LSU wins by 17 plus, but definitely something they got to look out for. Then they get Auburn at home. I have this game as a win. Last year they only beat Auburn by 4 points on the road, 21-17. So I think it's a little bit different. It's on the road. It's right before you play Tennessee with no bye week in between. So definitely could have been overlooking Auburn for sure. And they played New Mexico the week before, so it's not really like they had a tough opponent. They beat them 38-0. So I think last year was a little bit of a different scenario. They get at Missouri the week before and Army the week after. So I don't really think this is going to be a problem this year. I don't think it'll be a close game. Auburn is still one of, if not the worst SEC teams coming into the season. So, I think LSU still wins this game by 17 points plus. I mean, at the least 10 plus points, I would say. Then they get Army at home. I have this game as a win. I don't think there's much discussion needed for this one. The triple option could potentially work against LSU if they're able to score consistently on LSU, which I highly doubt. With the triple option, then maybe you have yourself a game, and if Army can control the clock and put points on the board. I just don't really see Army being able to put points on the board to stop LSU, and I don't think their defense is going to be able to really hold LSU and prevent them from putting up it. I think if LSU scores 20 points, they win the game. To be honest, I don't think Army can score 20 points on the LSU defense. Then they go on the road to Alabama, the team they beat in overtime on the road last year, 32-31. But I think Alabama wins this game this year. It's on the road. It's so hard to win in Alabama at this point in the season. This is the 8th game of the season for you. The 9th game of the season for you. Alabama's going to have all those problems figured out, all the question marks that everybody has going in. And we see it with Nick Saban every year. He just doesn't lose to the same teams 2 years in a row. It's hard for a team to beat him 2 years in a row. It just doesn't really happen. I think Bama has some more talent than LSU does on their team. Obviously, LSU will bring in the better quarterback, but I think Alabama will have things figured out and will be a better football team than LSU. Especially whenever you factor in that it's going to be at Alabama. Then they get Florida at home. I have this game as a win. I don't think Florida is in a situation where they're really going to push a team like LSU. They got beat by 10 last year in the Swamp. So, I think LSU is gonna handle Florida just fine in this game. Then they get Georgia State at home. This is a win. Not any discussion really needed for this one, but a nice little game to have before you go into the rivalry game against A&M, which you lost last year by 15 points, 38-23. And against A&M this year, I have LSU winning. I think they get their revenge. It's going to be in Death Valley. That's going to be the fake Death Valley, of course, not Clemson's Death Valley. But it's going to be a tough game. I think for about the first half, and then I think LSU is going to pull away. Jimbo and Texas A&M are just a disappointment every year. They're not going to be able to compete for 4 quarters with this LSU team, I don't think. I think LSU will get the job done this year and get a nice win. And that wraps up their season. I have them going 10-2 overall, 6-2 in the conference. Maybe potentially the SEC West champions again, just to get killed by Georgia in the championship again. But we'll see. I think it's going to be another good season for Brian Kelly and this LSU team. I think Jaden Daniels is a potential Heisman candidate. So things are looking good in Baton Rouge. I think they're in a good spot. But that wraps up today's video. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Comment those thoughts and opinions down below. Help me reach 1,000 subscribers by the end of August. I appreciate all of you guys watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you next time.